Okay, let's talk about the feminine edge of the well-behaved woman. This started to land in my reality, in my musing and awareness of myself in the last few months when it felt like I kept, how if you go through a house of mirrors and you're not sure where to go and you almost like bump into one. I kept bumping into this old reality within myself around not behaving, not behaving from the perspective of acting out of line, acting out of order, behaving out of order, behaving in the sense of what is even unspoken and expected of how to be a woman, how to be a wife, how to be a mother, how to be a friend, how to be a sister and a daughter. It's across the board, all the things. And I kept bumping into feeling like that essence of behaving meant I had to align myself with someone else's expectations, even the expectations from when I was a child and what I was taught in religion or a strict home or parents who had their own things. Like there are layers of this in our system, and it goes back even before this lifetime to our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and the women before them and the women who were gifted mystics and healers and witches and medicine women and were either killed or punished or tortured because we didn't behave according to the standard of someone or something outside of us. When women don't behave, chaos erupts. And I want to be clear that I am not talking here about behaving as in a woman of integrity, a woman with her virtue intact, a woman who has the depth and the intimacy and the awareness and the consciousness to truly know and trust herself and choose the movements of her life. And it really showed up for me. And this ultimately has nothing to do with my husband, but I was bumping into it in the last few months, as in I was bumping into my young Jackie self of 20 to 30 to 35 and even 40 years old. How I felt I had to behave. And I don't mean behave like be good, but it also is to be a good woman, to do the right thing, to not be this, to not be that, to not disrupt, to not cause chaos, to not be displeasing, to not risk approval and love ultimately. And I kept bumping into places where I could feel because I've become so deep in myself in the last, I would say 5 years, but year especially. Like I went deep into not just clearing old beliefs or beliefs from someone or something outside of me, even at 52 years old, beliefs I'd taken on, even in the last 5 years of wanting to recreate, give a new foundation to my marriage with my husband, which we did together. It's amazing. Beliefs I had in the process of that, that I kept bringing into the marriage and trying on and living only to find they got bumped out. They weren't true for us. They might be true here or here or here or here or here or just in the sex. But when I went all the way down and felt the full alignment of Jacqueline, they got bumped out. I got bumped out. Anytime I was falling into that, I'm going to use my 20-year-old wife self, 20 years old, coming out of a strictly religious upbringing, coming out of dysfunction, which is no disrespect to my parents, because my children could sit and say there was dysfunction in our home in certain ways also, and that's true. So I'm saying this as in what was in my own space that along the way I held as though it belonged to me, but it didn't. What I really have done, especially in the last year after that trial and error examination period of what is yes and what is crap or not for this season of my life, I want to clarify that also. Some of the teachings about relationship, about being a woman, are not for all of your life. They're for seasons and moments and cycles and stages. It's very clear to me, even after turning 50, 50 felt different than 53 does now. Very different sensation of this woman. And so in the last year, instead of the trying on, trying to fix, evolving, growing, building and developing the new, it shifted from my marriage that was becoming more and more stabilized, even though sometimes if you looked from the outside, it didn't seem like that. Two fire signs, zoom, zoom, zoom. It became more stabilized because we each, through this trial and error and figuring out how we live and co-create and love and evolve together, we each had to deepen into our own selves. And in doing so, in the middle of us was respect for each other in being who we are, instead of expectation to adjust and morph and be this and do that and behave in a certain way that is pleasing or right or yields the results that you want. And so the last year has been much more of what lives at the source of Jacqueline, at the origin point of who I am, where I come from, and what I am for. And as I, in that deepest part of my being, as I connected at the root, instead of in my sex or in my heart or through my mind or with my voice, or in that center of power where we're constantly adjusting to receive love. Instead, I went all the way down to the root of Jacqueline. And I understood and I began to align from there. And that was on a human level, my human biology, my ancestry, my lineage, the people I come from. Who are they? What are they about? And how is that me? And how is that not me? And what am I meant to transmute or transform and bring into a new now consciousness, evolved expression of woman and feminine and human and priestess and energetic mistress as opposed to master when I say that, and cosmic feminine essence. I went down to the point of origin, ground zero source. And as I did that and then began to enter Jacqueline, right? We have to go down to rise up. And when I say rise up, I mean for the feminine, for a woman, for me, know the source of my own internal structure that is the best example I've heard of this. Thinking about something else, and if I want to bring it in here, I'm not going to. The best example of structure for the feminine is a womb. When we conceive as a human woman, that baby, when making love with our man, a the baby, the egg and the sperm unite in the womb and land in the womb. And then the life begins to form. And then the placenta that supports life begins to form. But first, that womb structure creates the space for the creation of life. It holds the space, it becomes the container. And if we didn't have the structure of the womb, that baby and the placenta that supports its life could not develop. And so at this place, I'm not conceiving babies ever again, but I do continue as a woman to conceive new life, new seeds of life, and birth new expressions and bodies of work and ways of loving and teachings and wisdom and even incredible space in my home. The list goes on and on and on. And that requires structure. I didn't know this until really the last year. So I was all over the place and I was leaning into my husband, the man, the masculine, to be the solid structure for me. And that's not how it works. Not in the context I'm speaking of. In the context of relationship and home and family life and that union, sure. There's a season of time. And when I was a maiden and a new wife and a mother, my husband provided our structure of support. But now that my children are grown, my husband and I have evolved. We're not newlyweds. We are mature, seasoned beings in a different stage of life. And frankly, he doesn't want responsibility for my own structure. And what I didn't know at the time that we were shifting out of that stage was that that's what was happening. Thus, an affair, a potential divorce, an energetic divorce, a few years of really bumpy, rocky figuring out who are we now and what is this thing that is our marriage. So, from that premise, the last year I have been identifying, anchoring, restoring, because I believe feminine structure exists at our point of origin. And so I've been pulling those threads through and restoring my own feminine structure, what holds Jacqueline and gives me the capacity to hold all that is Jacqueline anchored in place. In doing that, now I am operating and functioning from here, which doesn't mean I don't love and partner with my husband, doesn't mean there aren't ways that I need him. That's a myth that a woman in her power is a feminist, extreme feminist who does not like men. Sure, that's been true on our planet, but that is not true here. I love men. And so, having that in place then unlocked the freedom and the liberation and the beauty and the richness and the magic and the wealth. And yes, the challenges and the stumbles and the uncertainty and the what the fuck is this of being Jacqueline now and letting it all come through. And so when we do that, now all of the old structures, conditioning, programming, inherited patterning of behaving so as not to upset the cart, so as not to be a bitch, not to be too much this or too much that, or perceived as this, or make things hard for my husband or my family, or blah, 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 fill in the blank. I began to notice every little adjustment of getting small and not really being Jacqueline. Because what I was bringing in energetically was how to be full bodied Jacqueline. And when we do that, anything that is not is going to become glaring, loud, obvious, and bumping into it, painful. So I'm going to keep this short and I'm going to leave you with two notes. One, just run that dialogue through your system of a well-behaved woman, number one, and number two, a woman who does not behave. And you can add at the end of that, a woman who does not behave according to fill in the blank of your own life and where you've been taught and entrained to behave, to be pleasing. And then notice when you start to run this through your system, you're going to notice those little adjustments that morph and distort who you are because they're going to feel scratchy and you're going to feel a little fiery and you're going to want to scratch. There were a few times I really literally wanted to just smack. In this case, my husband, not because he deserved it, but because in the behavioral conditioning I was carrying, it meant I had to compromise myself to stay in relationship with him, which, by the way, was a lie. It was never what he expected. And if he became aware in himself that it was, he chose to evolve also. Not because I made him, but because in the truth of the energy in this universe is when something happens, there is an equal and opposite effect. And so when I get aligned, he gets aligned. The opposite, right? There's the true polarity. Polarity isn't just, ooh, we're so polarized. It's highly erotic in the middle. Yes, but that's not going to last. You can't build a marriage, a family, a life, a business, any of that on those kind of polarized energies. True polarity is I move, you move, you move, I move. In the energy field, that's why it matters to know your energy, to clean up your energy, to become clean and clear and pure. Hello, Virgin archetype. Pure and true unto yourself and your own energy signature. 2024 for me was about the art of being woman. 2025, my collection is the art of making love. Can't do that if we're in someone else's signature. It's much more challenging to create love in the world by being who you are if you don't know who you are as a woman, if you don't have the structure and the capacity to hold it when the boat rocks and when you refuse to adjust and behave and be pleasing. There's something else I wanted to drop in here. Hold on. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But all of this has completely changed my orientation of who I am in my woman, in my marriage, and especially at this point in my life because I chose the marriage and the man. I'm in. And I'm in a way that I can make compromises for the good of the two of us and our marriage if we are choosing together. But that's very different than I will compromise myself and become resentful and bitter and small. No, no, and no. This now gets to land in my creative energy. And what I began to notice is that if I didn't pull that thread through my marriage, yes, but then not leave it in my marriage and expect the marriage to be everything. And my husband and I, he's my everything, and that's my whole life, and I'm just for him. I lived that season. In some ways, he is my everything in terms of our partnership and our intimacy and how much I love this man and I love being with him. And there's more. There's me. There's my legacy and how I'm creating in the world and what has to come through me that no longer is just channeled to the home and the children and the family and the husband. And again, he doesn't want that either. He wants true partnership because he's evolved. This has led the art of making love. How does a woman make love in the world? Meaning, not just making love in the bedroom. Yes, yummy. But how are we living our life, sharing our medicine, channeling our magic, creating our artistry, building our business in a way that expands and expresses and blesses and anoints more love in the world? My marriage and what I lived in all of what I'm sharing with you became a beautiful training ground these last 5 years for now my business and my legacy and sustainability and resource for my life, for our life, and for who I am and what I am for. And for the grandbabies that will come, and my children, and the ways that me being Jacqueline and true to me bless and enhance their life. Because this, I know, this is what I am for. Choose to not behave. And I don't mean go out there and wreak havoc. Like, let's be real. I had an affair. I'm not saying go have an affair. It it was certain in my woman at the time that that was right. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The woman I am now, abso-fucking-lutely not. I would not choose that. Speaking of the wild woman, if you hear that, that's Kali, who is very clear on who she is and does not behave. I would love, if you have thoughts, if you have experiences around this, I would love to hear it. Big love. Let me also say before I go, the art of making love in 2025, what I'm sharing with you, I'm teaching. I'm leading women through 4 seasons, Creatrix 2.0, because we are a creatrix at the cosmic level. And we are meant to bring that down to this planet, and behaving and adjusting won't do it. So I'm teaching a full year certification of the Creatrix energy, starting with Fem Business. Let's get your business branded. Let's anchor you into your signature, understanding who you are, and bring that into your creative sexual juice and energy in the world. Season 2, Empress CEO, leadership and anchoring your power. Understanding what that means and becoming clear in your authority and your permission and your liberation of being woman and being the CEO of your life, of your business. And then in the summer, courtesan, sex and money. How does anchoring into your woman then flow into your sex and money and become expressed through your true birthright of inherited wealth and resource and eros and sensuality? And we conclude with the enchantress materializing your magic. The final piece in bringing it from the cosmos, right? That cosmic feminine womb, bringing it down into our body through and activating our womb of remembrance of who we are as pure feminine magic and actually materializing that in the world, materializing in the material world. Yes, I'm talking about money. I'm talking about clients. I'm talking about movement and evolution and art and the ability to invest in an entirely new feminine economy and way of creating and investing and supporting this web and community of women who are vested in restoring the true, pure, feminine template. So, with that, biggest love, find your edge.